Sacred Tarot. And again, I like to ask everybody to please keep your microphone muted unless you have the floor, and also hold all of the questions until we reach the end, or we reach the point to where that's designated for the questions to be addressed. If you have to write them down, that'll be cool. If you want to trust your memory, that'll be on you right there. You know, maybe your memory is way, way, way better than mine. In week one, the handouts that we had was how the tarot works, what is mediumship, what is feeling ESP, and what is intellectual ESP. So the first thing that we'll go over is how the tarot works. Now, as we noted, there are many different systems of the tarot. What we use at the Church of Light is the Sacred Tarot, but regardless of what system that you use, it's a process that takes place between the outer plane and the inner plane. The outer plane is that which the average person calls the physical world. The inner plane is that which supersedes the speed of light. And it is on this inner plane that the information is received. It is on this inner plane that the connections are made, and through symbolism, they are placed on the boundary line into our astral brain and comes back in the forms of symbols. And based off of how well we read those symbols, determine how well we are able to interpret the experience and the information that was received from the experience that we had on the inner plane. To make it a little more plain, not to play on the planes, but to make it a little more simple, when we go to sleep, that place, that Neverland place that you go to, that's the inner plane. When you close your eyes and you think about a place, or you go somewhere, that is the inner plane. It is wherever your mind is traveling that supersedes the speed of light. Thought supersedes the speed of light. In more technical terms, the way that the tarot work is, the best way to work with the tarot is, before you begin to ask the question, before you begin to shuffle the cards, you want to determine a specific method that you will be using. And once you develop your methods, you want to stick with this method, because in sticking with this method, then that prepares your unconscious mind or your subconscious as to what it is that you are looking for and how it is that it's supposed to look. A person may ask, okay, well, you trying to tell me that I can speak to my unconscious mind or my subconscious mind and stuff? We do it all the time. We do it every day. And what we're doing in using the tarot or using alchemy or using even astrology is to constructively do it and to consciously do it, which places us in a better position so we can control the energy, tame it to our purpose, and use it for what it is that we need to use it for in our quest for the development and the universal welfare of society. So you would determine the method that you are using. For example, what kind of spread are you going to use? Which way are you going to cut the cards? Which way are you going to shuffle the cards? All of this is methodology. In the beginning stages, for those who are coming to the Sacred Tarot class and you don't have any experience with the tarot, then it's not a process of unlearning that you have to go through. And for the ones that have been doing tarot maybe for a lot of years, you know, it's a different way that you have to work with it. And pretty much the biggest difference that you will be seeing is in the interpretation of the card, what the major arcanum means if you have not been using the system from the Church of Light. And other than that, you probably would stick with what it is that you're used to, because That's kind of like the agreement that you have made between your conscious thinking and your subconscious thinking. And this is what will yield you the best results when you begin the process of trying to find answers. Now, after you have determined this method, after you have came clear with the method that you are using, then the next thing that you want to do is you have to clear your mind. The reason why you have to clear your mind is because in order to retrieve something, there has to be a deliberate intent. There has to be a deliberate push of the consciousness by way of the question to the inner plane. And the only way that you're going to do this, or the best way that you are going to do this where it's constructive, is by one, clearing your mind before you ask the question or before you go to the process. And this applies whether you are doing a reading for yourself or whether you are doing a reading for a family member or a friend or a client, whatever the case might be. You have to get rid of all of the noise that was taking place before you decided to do this reading. After you have cleared your mind, then comes the question. And these steps may vary a little bit depending on what type of spread you're doing and all of this, but this is the basic process. Sometimes once you get to going, you may decide, okay, you want to do a cold spread right quick, and you may not, you might just clear your mind and you have formulated the particular type of spread you're going to do, and you will do that spread and you will see what kind of energy, what kind of answers you are getting to. You may start that as the first spread. So you may not ask a question, but what you have to do is clear your mind before you begin that process. You have already determined which way you're going to shuffle the card. You have already determined which way you are going to cut the card. And so once you get that question, you're not thinking of what the result is going to be from the question. You're not thinking of, you're not imagining a positive result, and you're not imagining what would be considered a challenging result. You know, and let me say this now. When we use the term positive and negative, we're not talking about good and bad. We're just talking about the degree of energy that's being experienced during this. It's kind of like saying squares and trines or oppositions and sextiles. Neither one of those are good or bad. They just describe the quality of the energy that will be experienced during this process. So while you are in the stage of shuffling the cards and all of that, you have determined what it is that you're, what type of spread it is that you are doing. Then you do your spread and so forth. And depending on the spread, you get your result, whether it's a yes or no, whether it's a magic 7 spread or whatever the case might be. And then your result comes there. What takes now what we have to ask ourselves is, how do we get that result? And we get that result by way of the inner plane process. The inner plane process is where, and we'll put another layer on this as we move from this particular slide, but when you, the method, the mind clearing, the question determined, all of that is what's taking place in the outer plane. All of that is what's taking place in the physical world. Once you begin the process, then it's you're handing it off like a baton to the inner plane. And on this inner plane, then that's where the EPP and the ESP is taking place. That's where the extra sensory perception, and that's where the extra physical power is taking place. What is extra physical power, you might ask? Extra physical power is the movements that you're not consciously controlling with your mind, that your hand is doing in the process of shuffling the cards and placing them in a particular direction. This is the movement of the cards and the movement of your hands that's being controlled and being influenced by your unconscious mind or your subconscious mind from the inner plane. And then you get to your result. Now let's go put another layer of clothes on that. All right, so I mentioned ESP, but there's another thing that we have, which is called mediumship. And we went over that in week 1. That's on the handouts. What is mediumship? Mediumship, imagine that someone else is in control of your brand new Mercedes Benz. Somebody is driving your brand new Porsche, or somebody might be driving your old Pinto, but it's your vehicle. It's what it is that you are using. And so mediumship is when another entity has control of your vehicle, either partially or fully. When another entity has control of your vehicle, either partially or fully, then that places you or removes you from the full seat of controlling how that car is going to drive. You let somebody get inside of your Pinto and they driving and you in the passenger seat. If they want to go over a pothole and tear your tires up on your car that's already having troubles, that's on you. That's mediumship. If you have someone inside of your Mercedes Benz and you want to get in the back seat, you want to let them drive in the front seat, knowing they ain't got no license and y'all on the freeway and they want to see how fast it can go, that's on you. You allowed somebody to drive your vehicle. And this is what mediumship is. And what Zane and the Church of Light teaches is that it's not that mediumship has not availed significant progress inside of the spiritual nature in humanity, but it's warning of the dangers of it. For instance, you may let somebody drive your car, and at that time you may need them to get you to where you're trying to go, and you may actually get there. They may have to drive you to a job interview. They may have to drive you to the hospital. They may have to drive you to cash your Mega Millions lottery ticket, and they got you there. That's mediumship, right? Spiritualist has used mediumship to advance us, but at the same time, there's always the risk of that crash. There's always the risk of that pothole. And so for that reason, the Church of Light does not advocate that anyone become a medium. Remember, our objective is to unfold to what it is that the Creator intended us to be. Feeling ESP. Feeling ESP is different from mediumship, but feeling ESP can actually walk you into mediumship if you're not careful. What takes place in spirit in feeling ESP, extrasensory perception, is you begin to make yourself very sensitive to where you pick up on the vibrations of other entities, whether it's on the outer plane or the inner plane. And you may say, well, I do that all the time. Ain't nothing wrong. You know, I get to singing and I get to feeling it, and people get to feeling it and they get to dancing and all of that stuff. You know, what's wrong with that? We exchanging vibes. We exchanging feelings, right? But the thing about feeling ESP is you're still not in full control, because although you can pick up on something, something else can pick up on you. And what determines who it is that's in control at that particular point is the vibratory rate. So if you are using feeling ESP, then and something comes along that has a higher vibratory rate than you, then it's in a greater position to control you. And now you may fall into that mediumship role. When you are using feeling ESP, you stand a greater chance at becoming overwhelmed, because all of this energy, all of this water is rushing into you, and now you drain. And that's not to say that it can't happen with any of the others, but with feeling ESP, you putting yourself out there. Okay, I'm exposed. You talking about somebody wearing feelings feelings on their sleeve, you exposed. And the thing about feeling ESP is, and it's not a bad thing, and I'm not telling you that it's a bad thing, because majority of the psychics, empaths, or what have you, uses a form of feeling ESP. The next thing that we have is intellectual ESP. In intellectual ESP, what separates that from feeling ESP is where in feeling ESP, you are making yourself hypersensitive so you can pick up on the vibrations of the other entities that's around you. In intellectual ESP, you cutting that volume down. So it's not based off of what you feel, it's based off of how fast and what frequency you are vibrating at. When you are vibrating at a higher frequency, then you have a greater ability to direct and to choose what it is that you are taking in and what it is that you are rejecting. Think about this. If you are driving in your car and you going 45 miles an hour, and another car come past you and it's doing 65 miles an hour, when you turn around and look at that car that's going 65 miles an hour, you probably won't even be able to see the face of the person that's in there. But now let's switch the roles around. Let's say somebody is going 45 miles an hour in a 70 miles an hour lane on the freeway, but they going 45 miles an hour, you going 70 miles an hour. When you ride past that person, you will be able to see almost every detail inside of that person's car. What the heck is they doing over there? Is they on their phone or what's going on? You will be able to see more of what's going on inside of their vehicle than they can see what's going on inside of your vehicle, because now we are dealing with velocity, and the faster that you go, the more time slows down. So you are able to see them and they are not as able to see you. Intellectual ESP. Now, during the intellectual ESP, the unconscious mind and the astral energy is what does the work. We have the world line. Every entity that exists in the physical world has one. It has a body in the outer plane, and it has a counterpart, a body in the astral world or the inner plane. Every single entity that exists in the physical world has a world line. And this world line, some people may call it a timeline, but the world line is what goes from beginning to end, or before the beginning and after the end. And in this world line, you have a now point. This now point is where you are currently at. When we are in the physical world, time is of essence. When we are in the physical world, time has a greater bearing. And so therefore we're not as able to control time as we can when we step up out of the physical world or when we go into our inner world. I mean, you can control it because right now somebody in California is 3 hours behind us now, and we dealing with time, which is that fourth dimensional thing, but it's still not as rapid and not as fast as it is once you go to that boundary line and you cross over and you go into the astral world. So intellectual ESP is the only one that the Church of Light advocates that we should really learn and get a good handle on. Before that, I got one more thing I want to say about this intellectual ESP. Imagine this. Imagine today's date, and you want to go back to, let's say, last week. last week would be, today's date is the noun point. Last week is in back of the noun point. And then you thinking about, you looking at your calendar and you marking off your calendar for what you want to do next week Friday. Next week Friday is ahead of the noun point. It's the future. You can see it. You marked it on your calendar. You know that it potentially might exist, but you never know. Something could happen next Thursday where you have to shift those plans around. But what you can't change is what happened last week. And that's how it is when we are viewing the world line. You can't change what happened before the noun point, but you can see it, you can visualize it, you can go back and revisit it, you can mark off the things that you might have missed. And so we say hindsight is 2020. And that's what you're doing when you're using your ESP, or when you using your cards and you going back and it has a position for what happened in the past, what is the root of this thing, what's going on in the present. That's the noun point. This is what's happening now. What's coming up in the near future that is ahead of the present. So it's always predicated on if something else doesn't happen and intervene and changes it. And what's the result? That's ahead of the noun point, so it can change, but this is the way that you can view it and see every detail, and you can do it better if you are using intellectual ESP, because you're not being controlled or potentially controlled by the vibrations of the other things. You are the one that's determining the vibration and what it is that you want to see. Intellectual ESP. Because we have a few people in here. So in 2 sentences or less, we want you to answer that question. Like, say one, say where the place was, and then 2, describe something that you seen at that place. Whether you are describing the sign that said "Welcome to that particular place," or whether you are describing a person that you saw, a place that you saw, a landscape that you remember. But the point is to name the place and to describe. When I say describe, I want you to visualize it. I want you to point out. If you seen a person, don't just say I seen a person. Was it a man? Was it a male or a female? You know, or what color did they have on? What stood out about that person? Did they have on a hat? You know, did they have on some did they have an accent? You know, well, we got to do this fast though. And so, and also in the icebreaker, guess what? We are going to have breakout rooms. Now, and I'm excited about the breakout rooms and all of that. So we're going to have breakout rooms in the icebreaker. It's probably, let me see what the time is. It'll be maybe a 15 to 20-minute breakout room. Just set it on 15 minutes. And in that breakout room, you have the power. You get to choose which breakout room you are going in. But what I ask is that you choose. So there's 4 breakout rooms, and the breakout rooms are divided by the elements. So we have the fire, the earth, the air, and the water. If your sun sign is a fire sign, then please join the fire breakout room. If your sun sign is an earth sign, then please join the earth breakout room. If it is an air sign, join the air breakout room. And if it is the water sign, then please join the water breakout room. And inside of that breakout room, what you're going to do is go back to the question. In an orderly fashion, you know, each person should be able to answer this question in a allotted time. And I'm going to step inside of each one of the breakout rooms to see how we're doing there, and answer the question. What is the last place you visited outside of your state? And if anyone on here has never been outside of their state, let's just say, what's the last place that you visited outside of your city? If you've never been outside of your city, what's the last place that you have visited outside of your neighborhood? If you've never been outside of your neighborhood, what's the last place that you visited outside of your house? If you've never been outside of your house, That's interesting. I want to talk to you personally. All right. So, now here's something else. All right, here we go. So fire signs are Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. Earth signs are Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn. Air signs are Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. Water signs are Cancer, Scorpio, and get ready for it, Pisces.
Aries.
No Sag?
We'd have heard them by now. Just joking.
That's disappointing. I love Sag.
So all Aries, one Leo?
No,
Leo.
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 Three Leos, right?
3 Leos.
Lenore, you're on mute. What are you?
Aries.
Oh, there's another one.
So there's 2 Leos and how many Aries? 5? 6 Aries.
So should Aries start? How do we?
Who's doing the recording?
That's the movable or cardinal sign. Yeah, Aries should start. I am doing the recording.
Okay.
So it's already started. So yes, we'll defer to you, Aries people.
Well, I went to Alabama some years ago.
7?
Huh?
You said 7 years ago?
No, some years ago, several years ago.
I'm always traveling.
Yeah, and so traveling, I should be getting back into that and hoping to go to the conference. Hadn't traveled in a long time. But it was Alabama. It was with my brother. I don't know what he had on. I know he had on his glasses. He has a black Avalon Toyota. So there's your description. Well,
well, I'm in Florida. My state was New York, but I'm always traveling from Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina. I'm always on the move. So,
Where was the last place you visited?
last place I visited was it was in Georgia.
that's where I am, in Georgia, Atlanta.
Yes, in Atlanta, Georgia. And that was like about a month ago.
Anything you remember about it?
Oh, my friend's house. She got a beautiful house.
Okay.
The dog. The environment is very pleasant, pleasing, quiet. That's basically it.
Good. Somebody else?
I can go. So the last place I went was to Virginia, and it was a music studio. And I remember being in a country road. And when I got there, there was 2 individuals, the man and his mother. And I remember thinking it was a very thoughtful environment because they didn't know I was going to come with my husband. And so I think it was intentional to have his mother there so that I wouldn't feel uncomfortable. So that was my experience.
I can go next. So I've been doing quite a bit of travel the past year, actually, but the last place I was in was December last year. I was actually in Egypt for 3 months.
Yeah.
It was amazing. I'm originally Egyptian, so it was like a visit home, basically. And Yeah, lots to remember about that, but I think what is in my awareness now was just the visiting the pyramids and spending some time inside. One of them was very beautiful, and I remember it was close to sunset and it was warm and unexpectedly crowded too. So yeah,
So there were a lot of tourists, huh?
there were. Yeah, I wasn't expecting that.
I wouldn't have either, but guess
Quite a
people are traveling. Thank you. I've been there.
Because
It's
that was still during
wonderful.
COVID, right? Last year, you
It
said
was
December.
December. It was 2
Yeah.
months
Mhm.
ago. Mhm. Yeah.
Are all of our Aries are done?
No, it was back in September. I went to Florida, Riverview, Florida, to my brother's funeral. So got to meet the
sorry for
family.
your loss,
Be with the
Lenore.
family. Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, I'll go. This is Peg, by the way. I think it says Church of Light.
Mhm.
Yeah, for those of us who haven't traveled for a while, my last travel was to Albuquerque, New Mexico for the last Church of Light convention. And what really sticks in my head is the lobby and the restaurant in the hotel. And every time you walked into the restaurant to get something to eat, there was always tables of members sitting there hanging out and talking. So you always had a friend when you went into the restaurant and the bar after the day was done.
Peg, is this the same hotel that we're gonna go for June
Yes,
this
it's
year?
the same hotel. We like it because it's got everything right there if you don't want
Right
to.
there, yeah.
Or rent a car because they also have a shuttle from the airport.
Mhm.
All right, who's next?
My name is Donald.
Hi,
Last place,
Donald.
excuse me?
Hi, Donald.
Hi, Peg.
Hey,
The last place I visited was Oakland,
California?
Town,
Oakland,
East
California.
Oh,
Bay,
when was
Old
that?
Town.
I live in the Bay Area.
I live in Monterey.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
from California too, yeah.
Oh, we're neighbors.
Mhm.
And I
But
went to
I'm living in Atlanta now.
Oakland for a veterans hearing for the BVA. And I stayed at the Marriott and went to the Federal Building. And it was a pretty good experience, but it was a difficult experience discussing your personal experiences that you've been through for a VA hearing. And I drove there. It was a pretty good drive. So that's about it.
Donald, you're Leo?
Yep, August 14th.
Okay.
Okay, I'm not tracking everybody here. So who's up next? RJ, did you say something?
Yes, I went to Alabama and my brother,
Right.
I
Okay.
remember my brother with the black car, the Avalon.
Yes. Candace?
Candace is on mute.
I know.
There you go. Oh.
I'm
Okay.
sorry. This is actually Andrea. Candace sent me her link because I was just added to the group this morning. And so I was like, I didn't realize that she had sent me just the link with her name. So I'm going to go ahead and put my name right here so we can all be on the same page. And there we go. And my camera's on the floor. Sorry.
That's all right. Looks like Aurelio just popped in too.
Yeah, I saw him.
How it's going?
Good.
Everybody finished?
We got one more person.
More.
And I believe what she shared with me is the last time we went out of state. Is that correct?
Yeah, the
Yes.
last place that you went to out of state.
The last place that I went to out of state was, choose to recall, California, San Francisco, to see my mother-in-law. And we'll be traveling back there at the end of the month as well.
Okay. And so what did what was the first thing that you seen?
The first thing that I saw, of course, is the sky because I'm in the plane. And so the sky and the clouds, and of course, traveling by plane, sitting by the window is always such a magnificent part of the journey. That is my favorite, absolute favorite part, is just seeing the beauty of the sky from that point of view.
Okay. All right. And so what did you see any people? What once you landed, what caught your attention?
Yes, of course. In the airport, a lot of people. What I tend to do, I'm a very big people watcher, so I really like to pay attention to people coming and going, people, you know, the colors of what they're wearing. Shoes are like my big thing, is I love to look at people's shoes. I'm fascinated with shoes.
So name one person that you saw. What did they have on?
That's a great question. So I did see this gentleman who was wearing pants that were short. They were kind of like crop pants for women, but they were folded, and he had some really cool socks on and some nice shoes, like wingtip shoes. And I just thought, oh, I just really like that style. He looks really adorable with that style on.
Welcome to San Francisco.
Right?
Adrian, are you a Sagittarian or
I'm a
Aries?
Leo.
A Leo, another Leo. Okay, thank you.
Oh, there you go. So have we been through everyone?
Is Michelle gone? I don't think so.
Well, I'm glad to hear people are traveling. I haven't, like I said, I haven't been out since 2019.
We have one more down on the bottom.
Oh, we do?
Yeah, James.
Oh, I didn't see James arrive.
He just
He came kind of late. Yeah, he just came in, just arrived.
Thank you. You're very observant.
Here. Yeah. All right, so I think we're just about done.
I have no mic or cam.
Oh.
So is Aurelio, are we done?
I think Aurelio left.
Oh, he left.
You know what? There's a chat. There's a chat where.
Yes.
Oh, okay. You saw it. Okay.
Yep. So everybody's comfortable traveling?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I traveled most of COVID.
Same here. I've been to Costa Rica, to Egypt, to Dubai.
Wow.
Been everywhere.
I've been doing a lot of travel, but it's been in the United States about at least 5-6 times, back and forth to Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, just staying on the move.
Mhm.
I love traveling.
Is that
and
part
my
of your
health-
job to do all
Oh,
that
sorry.
traveling?
Say that again?
Is that part of your job?
No, I'm actually a trade school teacher. I was teaching electrical trade in New York. I'm also an electrician.
Ooh, good job. Uh-oh. We're about to close in less than a minute.
Yeah.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
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 Hello.
Hello.
Hello, hello.
Hola, hola.
How am I gonna do this?
I have a question.
Yes.
He never told us how we supposed to keep our cards or how we store our cards. Some people say you should store them in a silk or
Yes, correct.
It was on the video for Christopher Gibson for our homework. He talked about that
oh, okay.
on the YouTube videos. Yeah, like you say, the silk or in a special box or
Silk and yeah, a special box. I have a rosewood box.
All right.
And usually it's
You can't
recommended it be raw silk, but hey, whatever.
because of the vibrations.
Correct.
pass or- Yeah.
Correct. One of the things I would add on cutting the cards, particularly if you have a new deck, is that you turn them over when you cut the cards, turn one of them over, one of the 3 stacks. Because if you just shuffle, if you've got a new deck and everything's upright, you need to be able to mix them up so you can turn them around because, well, unless you want a yes answer, but on some of the other spreads like a Magic 7, you get a lot more information because there's a meaning to right side up and a meaning to upside down.
Oh, can I ask this? So in Aurelio's example just now, it was a tie. So and I'm asking if there is some kind of process to break a tie or you stop there and just reflect or
It's undecided, and usually it means that there needs to be more time before you get the answer. I'm not saying that very well, but you probably want to wait a little bit till things come to fruition to get an answer. It's just telling you, it's like avoid a course in astrology. Like, nah, now's not a good time to get the answer. You need to wait a bit.
and observe and just kind of, okay.
Even though I have seen people do yes or no readings one after another to get a yes answer.
I have a question about that, about
Me.
the wish card, because I thought in one of the things it said if the wish card does appear, then it is a yes. So is that not the case with the yes and no?
Yeah, the wish card usually, not necessarily, the wish card usually means all your dreams will come true. We all like to see that in a reading. But honestly, Andrea, I don't remember. I'm more of an astrologer than tarot. That was a while back since I learned tarot. It's a good question. I can look it up.
So the wish card, some of them give it a couple of more points, but just because the wish card is in the spread doesn't automatically mean that it's going to be, because what if the wish card is reversed, and the reverse cards are more like squares and oppositions. It doesn't mean that they don't exist, but it's more like squares and oppositions. If you have an undecided reading, it's undecided and you can't keep doing a reading to get the answer that you want. But you can read the cards that's there that represents before the noun point and after, and it'll give you information about the read.
Right.
that might tell you why it's undecided
Yes.
or something. Okay.
It will give you insights into the situation you're asking about.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so 3 stacks. 2.
Oh,
And-
RJ, you gonna do a reading for us?
Okay. Okay, I will. I'm having a time with this shuffling. Okay. So did somebody have to ask the question? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So somebody asked a yes or no question.
I don't think it goes like that.
Well, yeah, you have to
Yeah,
have the, you have
somebody
to,
has to ask
you have
a
to have the
question.
question in your mind as you're shuffling and cutting the cards.
Yeah, so somebody asked the question and so I can shuffle and do it real quick.
So we'll let the lady from the Church of Light ask the question so we can get an understanding.
I have no questions. I'm perfectly fine.
Okay, I'll ask.
Good.
Will I do well in my training and learning in this course?
Oh, I already know the answer to that, but I mean, okay.
I don't
Okay. Average and down. Okay, so turn it up like this. So the first one I got is a I think it's the number 13. It's the card that says death, and it came upside down.
know. Okay.
So that's a no. Let me see. This one.
That card represents transformation,
Okay.
which
And
death could be.
Right. Then I got an upside down, a reverse 6 of cups. So that would be a no. I'm sorry. Then I got an upright. So how do you say that? Upright 9 of cups.
Ooh.
So that's a middle card. So that means 2.
That's the wish card. You pulled the wish card, yeah.
Oh, okay. So that was right side up. And that's a middle card. So that gets 2 points of yes.
Right.
Shucks. Those other cards fell. Hold on.
They fell. You're not going to know if they're
Yeah.
right side up or not.
Well, I just put them there and see that's part of transformation. Things can change. It might be yes.
Oh, so Messiah, is it you really want this answer to be yes?
No, I just want to hear her answer because it's not good. I'm not looking for the answer because the object is I
right.
don't
But
want
you
to
got
go
the
there.
wish cards. You have a desire here.
Yeah, I started training with this like when I was like my early 30s, and I had took a test on occult knowledge, and I got like a 98 in it.
Wow.
And I had a good rapport with whoever I was communicating with. They was asking, because I grew up with science most of my life. And then I like fell out of it for a while. And then I wanted to buy all 21 books and I didn't. And then I came back and I looked, I said, oh, wow, they're still around. So I went out here and I saw the books again, but I said, I should have did it when I was younger. And then I bought the book. And then all of a sudden I got an invitation. I said, wow, this changed. Okay, let me see what's going on here. And that's what made me get involved ever since that point. And I intend to get all 21.
So the next one is number 18.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, how do you say it? This one is reversed, which says, is this the moon? I think it is the moon. It's right. Is 18 the moon, Cancer?
Mm-hmm. We got 1 minute left.
All right, so that's what I have. Okay, wait a minute. And the other one is right side up, which is number 21. So, oh God, hold on. So,
21, that says you're going to be a hermetician.
Say that
but
again.
that sounds like his story. You know what I'm saying? Like, not sure. And then, yes, kind of like, but anyway, so let me count the numbers. So, you got oh God, 1, 2, 3 no's and 3 yeses.
Okay, so
But that
exactly where
sounds
we
like the
started.
story that you just told. It's is that right?
But you have major arcanum cards there.
No, I have some.
Did everybody enjoy the exercise?
Yes, it was fun. Got to meet new people.
Okay. Good. All right. So next, what we have is drum roll. Oh, we did that. Oh, space and time relativity. Space and time relativity. Boy, this is the good stuff right here. We actually already been talking about space and time relativity. So in dealing with space and time relativity, time and velocity are always connected to each other. Time and velocity always have a relationship. In fact, you can't describe something without the consideration of time. Whether you are describing the location of something, whether you are describing the look of something, how long were their hair? How long was their hair? How short was their hair? How tall were they? How short were they? All of these things include time. You need time and distance in order to give this description. What takes the more velocity something has, then the more mass it has. Now that might look a little simple, but let's take a look at it in logical terms where we can see it. The greater the velocity, then the greater the mass. Mass determines force. So let's take a bullet, a small bullet. And let's say someone is standing in front of you and they like maybe about 1 foot in front of you. And they throw the bullet at you and they hit you in your arm with the bullet. Well, don't imagine you, imagine somebody. They hit you in the arm with the bullet, right? It's pretty much not gonna do too much to you. Unless it hit a funny bone, it's not gonna even hurt you, right? Because the velocity that little tiny bullet, which you are probably 100 times bigger than, your mass is greater than the mass of that little tiny bullet that somebody threw at you while they was in front of you. Now let's take that same bullet and that same I don't want to use a person in there. Let's say I don't know if I should use a deer. Somebody Peter might come and give me something. Okay, let's say you take that same bullet and it's projected from a firearm. What at the same distance. Before, it didn't really do too much of nothing to you. It didn't hurt you, it didn't harm you, it didn't knock you down, it didn't move you, it didn't make you move backwards. If you didn't know they was about to do it, the most it would have made you do is what is you doing? What's your something like that. But if it's projected from a firearm, now because of the gunpowder and the fire and all of that behind it, the velocity of it is a great deal more. And since the velocity is a great deal more, that little tiny bullet has a greater mass, and its mass makes it weigh more than you now. And since it was sped up and that created a larger mass, what before wouldn't even make you move now knocks you off of your feet. That's velocity. The greater the velocity, the more mass that it has. And so this is the reason why when we see something on an inner plane, it has a greater impact on the outer plane than the outer plane does on it, because it is moving at a greater velocity. On the inner plane is where all of our issues are at. When we begin to sublimate things, or when we begin to repress things, it begins to store up different thoughts, and these thoughts comes out into our activities and manifest inside of our physical world. Why? Because they have a greater mass. They exist in the subconscious. They exist in the unconscious mind. And because they exist in the subconscious and in the unconscious mind, where the velocities are greater, when it impresses on our outer world that has a lesser mass than the inner world, then the result is seen here. It comes out in personality traits. It comes out in activities that makes us ask ourselves, why in the world did I do that? Or why do I keep finding myself in these certain type of situations and things of that nature? Because of the inner plane energies that we're not mastering, or maybe not even noticing. And so this is velocity. Earth, man, and when I say man, I'm talking about man and woman. The root word of woman is man, so it's talking about it all. Earth, man lives in two realms. We might say this every week. We'll continue to say this until it's nailed in, and as they say in wise scripture, become a part of every other part. Earth entities live in two realms: the outer plane and the inner plane, the physical world and the astral world. What separates these two realms is the boundary line. The boundary line is what we call the rate of light. The boundary line is where that electromagnetic energy exists, traveling at a rate of 186,173 miles per hour. This is the boundary line. In the space and time relativity, nothing in the physical world can directly touch a thing in the inner realm, and nothing in the inner or the astral world can directly touch something in the physical world. There has to be a medium, and this meeting point is this boundary line. Thought at the minimum travels at the rate of light, at this 186,073 miles per hour. So when we want to send a message to our unconscious mind, first that message is delivered to the boundary line, to the electromagnetic energy, and the astral counterpart that we are sending this energy to picks it up off the table from there. And when we are sending ourselves messages, when our inner self or our unconscious mind is sending messages to or trying to deliver a message to our conscious mind, then it delivers that message first to the boundary line, which impresses on or comes from the astral brain, and then it manifests in the outer world as a memory or as a symbol. It doesn't speak the same language. The language on the inner plane is not the language on the outer plane. Although time exists on both of them, they are at different velocities, so time has a different order. Distance has a different order. In the outer plane, we are affected by gravity. You don't see a whole bunch of people flying around unless they're on an airplane, or they created something, or they're X-Men. In an inner plane, we have the ability to be to go down as well as to levitate as well as gravitate. And how we levitate and gravitate on an inner plane is all based upon the rate of vibration. The rate of vibration is what controls the way that we move around. To whereas on the outer plane, it is gravity that dictates the way that we move around. Everything that we do, we measure it in terms of how it is affected by gravity. In order for us to be able to go faster, then we have to speed up our velocity. So an airplane has a greater velocity than a car. A car has a greater velocity than a bike. But even with all of their greatness, it does not reach the rate of light. It does not reach 186,000 miles and 173 miles per hour. That's space and time relativity. And so the question that was asked, and we experience this every single day. Every single day, we experience both realms. Every moment of the day, we experience both realms. Our objective is to become conscious and aware when we are experiencing them, and to control how we are experiencing them. Or if not control, to at least better influence how we are experiencing them. Here's an example of us experiencing them. What is the last state that you went to outside of your state? If you envisioned it, if you saw something about where you went, in thought, you revisited that place. Once you begin to describe who it is that you saw, once you begin to describe the socks that that person had on, the shoes that that person had on, the way that those cows smell, that was your extra sensory perception in full effect. Extra sensory comes from the word senses. You were able to smell that. You were able to see it. You were able to hear it. You were able to experience it, but you didn't experience it in the physical realm. You experienced it astrally. You experienced it in thought, because in thought, you can go from Michigan to Florida in less than 30 seconds, faster than the speed of light. And so this is the process that takes place when we are dealing with our cars. This is the process that is taking place when we are dealing with anything that's in terms of ESP or EPP or any type of psychic work. We are crossing these borderlands, and what the cards does, since it doesn't speak in literal terms and it speaks in symbolism, and we develop a method that we are going to use with the cards before we actually use the cards, then we communicate this to our unconscious mind, and our unconscious mind know what language we are looking in. The language is the language of the major arcana. The language is the language of the minor arcana. The language is the language of astrology. The language is the language of numerology. All of these things are understandable by our astro thinking, by the inner plane, because they transcend the verbiage that we hear. They transcend the words that we speak. And once this transcendental thing takes place, we are able to retrieve the information that was there. The more confidence that we have in it, the more we do it, then the more precise, the more consistent, and the more reliable the answer is that we receive. The more reliable the answer is, and the more we trust, the more confidence that we have in our interpretation. Because our unconscious mind already knows what our conscious mind thinks and what it wants because of the methodology that we choose, because the system that we have embraced. And just like that pair of shoes that you love so much, that probably tore your feet up the first time that you put them on, the more you wore them, you broke them in. The more you broke them in, the more comfortable they begin to fit. The more comfortable they begin to fit, that's when you say, yeah, these was made for me. I know these was made for me. And that's the way it is with our cards, with any talisman that we use, or any type of divinatory tool. Make no mistake about it, the tarot is a divinatory tool. It's a divinatory tool that utilizes what we know about the scientific process of astrology. What we already embrace about the scientific process of astrology. Space, time, relativity. Space-time relativity, we already went over the world line, we already went over the noun point, and we already went over ESP. Let me say it one more time. The world line. The world line is this line from the beginning to the end of an entity or a thing, from before the beginning and after the end of a thing. That whole line is the world line. The world line has different points upon that line. Closer to the beginning of the world line is before the noun point. The noun point is the present on the world line. After the noun point is the potential future of the world line. Zane describes it as a person being in an airplane that's looking upon a mountain, right? You ask somebody, let's say you got a mountain, and you ask two people, well, what's the most beautiful thing about the mountain? And or you ask four people, and each one of those four people are standing on different sides of the mountain and looking at that mountain. So one person says, well, I think the most beautiful thing about the mountain is the way that that rock was hanging off of the mountain and how it was going up, and you can drive up on it and it don't fall on your head and crush you. That's the most beautiful thing about the mountain. And the other person that was on the other side of the mountain, they look and they see the flowers. They see the vegetation and all of that stuff growing, and they say, well, the most beautiful thing that I've seen about that mountain, or the most beautiful thing about that mountain, is the way that those flowers just bloomed. It made you think about Little House on the Prairie. And then another person was on the other side of the mountain, and they seen goats. And they said, and I ain't talking about the greatest of all time, they seen goats on that mountain. And they said the most beautiful thing about this mountain is that it had livestock. And then another person was on the other side of the mountain, and the rocks and stuff was rolling down again. And they said the most beautiful thing about that mountain is that I ain't get hit by those rocks that was rolling down. Who was right and who was wrong? All of them was correct. Now, if you take all of them up on a helicopter above the mountain, now they can see each one of the sides of the mountain. And after they're able to see each one of the sides of the mountain, they are more able to make a better informed decision and choice or opinion about what's the most beautiful thing about this mountain. And that's the world line. The world line allows you to be able to see the faster your rate of velocity is. Remember, time slows down. On an inner plane, you're speeding faster than the speed of light. And so you can see everything in time almost at a standstill. And you can pick and choose which part of time, which part of that timeline you want to get a close-up look on. Just like you in that helicopter. I would give the Doctor Strange thing, but I don't want my biases to get inside of the picture. But time and this world line and the next Doctor Strange that's coming. Okay, so we dealt with the noun point, we dealt with the world line and the ESP. That's the whole thing, the extrasensory perception. I think we went pretty in depth on that. Guess what? No, hold on, let me do that again. All right, guess what we got coming up next? A 15-minute break. And when we come back with the 15-minute break, we are going to a really quick lab, touch the cards for a minute, and then we'll close it out, and I'll take on any questions that anybody might have. So we can hit that 15-minute break now.
Okay, we weren't done. We weren't quite done.
Yeah, we didn't get to select our teams.
Okay. So Candace, maybe you can work with both. You have a team of 3, Heidi and James. So you guys can exchange your emails in the chat.
We didn't get that far, Aurelio.
No? Okay. Well, we can either do it next week, but if you want to quickly, because we're about to close out, so if you want to quickly direct message somebody, you could do that, but I prefer it for somebody that was in that element, and I'm doing that for a purpose. And the one thing that I saw that I don't want you to do is don't do the reading yet. Just learn the method. You know, trust me, the reading is going to come. Learning the method is most important first. You know, learn the method. So instead of giving the reading, when you flip the cards over in the first card, okay, that's the Magus. Okay, number 2 position, that's the Veil Isis. Number 3 position, all right, that's the Materialist. That's what we're gonna do. Learn the cards. Use the spreads to learn the cards, and you can see that it's representing the position, the past, the recent, future, and so forth. But don't try to do the readings yet. Just learn the cards and do the spreads. Get the methodology done. And if everybody is back, we'll get ready to close this meeting out.
Do you want me to do it or you want to do it?
I can do it.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.